The massive crystal throne room stretched for miles in every direction, and thousands of alien beings filled the space with their strange sounds and smells. Captain Daeho Kim walked slowly across the polished floor, while his boots made small clicking sounds that echoed in the huge chamber. Above him, the ceiling showed images of conquered worlds and destroyed fleets from species that had dared to oppose the mighty Titan Empire. Empress Vela sat on her throne like a giant made of living stone and metal. Her 4 powerful arms, each as thick as a tree trunk, rested on the armrests while her 6 eyes glowed with purple light that seemed to burn through anyone who looked at her. She stood nearly 4 meters tall, and her skin looked like dark granite covered in silver lines that pulsed with energy. Her voice when she spoke could shake the ground and make even brave warriors feel fear. Around the throne room, hundreds of different alien species watched the human ambassador approach, their ruler. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple heads, and many had features that would give nightmares to humans who saw them for the first time. All of them had one thing in common. Though they had all been conquered by the Titan Empire and now served as slave soldiers or entertainment for their masters. Captain Kim had served in the Korean Space Navy for 20 years before Earth united all its militaries into one force. He had seen battles in space and fought pirates near the asteroid belt. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. He carried with him the hopes of 8 billion humans, and the weight of their future rested on his shoulders. The small device hidden in his uniform felt heavy, even though it weighed almost nothing. The Empress raised one of her massive hands, and the noise in the throne room stopped instantly. Every alien being turned to watch what would happen next. The silence felt thick and dangerous, like the moment before lightning strikes during a storm. Captain Kim stopped walking when he reached the designated spot 50 meters from the throne and waited for permission to speak. Vela looked down at the human with the same expression someone might use when looking at an insect that had crawled into their house. Her voice boomed through translation devices that hung from the ceiling like mechanical spiders. Each word felt like a hammer blow that tried to crush the spirit of anyone who heard it. Your species amuses me, little human, she said, and her laughter sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. Your planet is so small, we could use it as a decoration in our gardens. Your technology is so primitive, we have toys more advanced than your greatest weapons. Your people are so weak that a single one of our soldiers could defeat 1,000 of your warriors. The assembled aliens began to laugh, and the sound filled the enormous chamber like a symphony of mockery. Some creatures made high-pitched whistling sounds, others produced deep rumbling noises that felt like earthquakes, and many created sounds that human ears could not even properly hear. The laughter went on for several minutes, while Captain Kim stood perfectly still and waited for it to end. When the noise finally stopped, Empress Vela continued her speech with obvious enjoyment. Your largest warships are smaller than the cargo vessels we use to transport food between our worlds, she said while gesturing toward a holographic display that appeared in the air. The display showed images of human spacecraft floating next to Titan vessels, and the difference in size was shocking. The human ships looked like toys compared to the massive alien craft. She waved another hand, and more. Images appeared showing Earth from space, surrounded by a small collection of human defense satellites and orbital stations. We have conquered 17 galaxies, little human. Each galaxy contained billions of stars and trillions of living beings. All of them now serve the Titan Empire. All of them learned the same lesson you will soon learn. The lesson is simple, she continued while her 6 eyes focused on Captain Kim like burning spotlights. Strength determines survival. The weak exist only to serve the strong. Your species has shown us nothing but weakness. You have no powerful allies to help you. You have no secret weapons to surprise us. You have no hope of victory against our might, Captain. Kim felt the weight of her words, but he had been prepared for this moment. He had studied recordings of previous encounters between the Titan Empire and other species. He knew that the Empress enjoyed humiliating those she was about to destroy, and he understood that showing fear or anger would only make things worse. "Permission to speak, Empress," he said in a calm, clear voice that carried across the silent chamber. The request seemed to surprise her, and she tilted her massive head to one side, as if looking at a pet that had just performed an unexpected trick. "Very well, little human. Speak your last words of defiance before we demonstrate why the Titan Empire rules the stars, Captain." Kim straightened his shoulders and looked directly into her burning eyes, despite the fear that tried to freeze his muscles. "We have come here today to offer you a choice, Empress. The human race asks for peaceful coexistence. Share the galaxy with us and we will cause you no trouble. We have no desire to threaten your empire or challenge your authority. We simply want to live in peace." The words seemed to hit Empress Vela like a physical blow, and for a moment her expression changed to one of complete shock. Then her laughter exploded from her throat so loudly that several smaller aliens fell to the ground from the sound waves. Her forearms slammed against the throne arms, and the crystal structure rang like a giant bell share. She roared between fits of laughter. "Share the galaxy with insects, with creatures so pathetic they cannot even defend their own homeworld. The very idea is more ridiculous than anything I have heard in 1,000 years." She stood up from her throne, and her full height made her look like a moving mountain. The other aliens in the chamber began laughing again, but this time their sounds carried an edge of cruelty that made the air feel cold and threatening. "I will give you one rotation of your planet to surrender completely," Empress Vela announced, while pointing one massive finger at Captain Kim. "If you do not surrender, we will demonstrate exactly why the Titan Empire has never lost a war. Your fleets will burn, your cities will fall, and your people will serve us as slaves for the rest of time." She gestured toward the holographic display again, and this time it showed the Titan war fleet, 3,000 ships, each one the size of a small moon, hung in space like mechanical gods of destruction. Their hulls gleamed with weapon systems that could crack planets in half, and their engines burned with energy that could power entire solar systems. "Look upon our strength, little human, and despair," she commanded. "These ships have destroyed civilizations that were 1,000,000 times more powerful than your pathetic species. They have turned entire worlds into dust and reduced proud empires to collections of slaves. What hope could your tiny vessels possibly have against such might?" Captain Kim looked at the display and felt a moment of genuine awe at the size and power of the Titan fleet. But he also felt something else that the Empress could not see or understand. He felt pride in his species and confidence in their hidden preparations. The small device in his uniform grew warm against his chest as he prepared to activate it. The message he was about to send would travel across space faster than light itself, reaching secret bases and hidden facilities that no alien had ever discovered. It would tell his people that the time for hiding was over and that humanity, greatest test, was about to begin, as the aliens continued to laugh and mock him. Captain Kim smiled slightly and spoke his final words to the Empress. "We understand your position, Your Majesty, and we respect your power. But you should know that humanity has always been at its strongest when others believed we were at our weakest." Before Empress Vela could respond to his cryptic words, Captain Kim pressed the hidden device and a signal raced across the galaxy toward Earth and beyond. The message was simple, but it would change everything. Operation Starfall is authorized. Humanity true strength must be revealed. The Empress noticed his movement but dismissed it as meaningless. What could this primitive species possibly do that would threaten her mighty empire? She had no way of knowing that humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this exact moment while carefully hiding their true capabilities from the watching galaxy as Captain Kim was led away by Titan guards, His mission was complete. The countdown had begun, and soon the galaxy would learn that judging humanity by their apparent weakness was the greatest mistake the Titan Empire had ever made. The laughter in the throne room continued for hours as aliens celebrated their anticipated victory over the pathetic human race. None of them suspected that in the dark spaces between stars, something vast and terrible was beginning to wake up. 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a bunker that had been carved from solid rock, Fleet Admiral Bo-Ra Park received Captain Kim's signal through quantum communication arrays that could reach across the galaxy in seconds. The massive underground facility stretched for miles in all directions and contained the most advanced military technology that humanity had ever created. Admiral Park stood before a holographic display that showed the true size and power of the human fleet, and the numbers would have shocked even the arrogant Empress Vela. 12,000 warships of various sizes and capabilities floated in the dark spaces between stars where no alien empire had ever thought to look. Each vessel represented decades of secret research and construction carried out by the greatest minds Earth had ever produced. Vice Admiral Hyunwoo Lee approached his commanding officer with a tablet containing the final battle preparations. His face showed both excitement and concern because he understood that the next few hours would determine whether humanity survived or became another collection of slaves in the Titan Empire. Admiral, the Quantum Beacon Network is fully operational, and all fleet commanders have confirmed their readiness. Commander Gina Choi joined them at the central planning table, where detailed maps of Titan fleet positions covered every surface. Her intelligence teams had spent years infiltrating alien civilizations and gathering information about their enemies' weaknesses. The data they had collected would give humanity advantages that the Titans could never expect. Admiral Park activated the main display screen, and the true scope of Operation Starfall became visible to everyone in the command center 50 years ago. When we first encountered the Titan Empire through their advanced scouts, we made a decision that would save our species, she announced to the assembled officers. We decided to appear weak while building strength in secret. The story she told explained how humanity had carefully planned their deception from the very beginning. When Titan scouts had arrived in the solar system, they had been shown only basic human technology, civilian spacecraft, and simple defense satellites the aliens had cataloged. These primitive vessels and reported back to their empire that Earth posed no military threat. What the scouts had not seen were the massive construction projects taking place in the dark regions beyond Pluto, where human engineers worked day and night to build a fleet that could challenge any force in the galaxy. The ships were powered by controlled black holes that provided nearly unlimited energy and armed with weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. We learned early that the Titan Empire judges all species by their visible military might, Admiral Park continued. So we gave them exactly what they expected to see: a weak, primitive civilization with outdated technology, while we built our real fleet in complete secrecy. The dark matter clouds in the outer system provided perfect cover for our construction facilities. Commander Choi brought up detailed specifications for the human warships, and the numbers were staggering. 200 Eclipse-class Supercarriers, each one capable of carrying 500 advanced fighter craft, 3,000 destroyer-class vessels equipped with phase-shift technology that allowed them to become temporarily invisible, 4,000 support ships with cloaking systems so advanced they could hide entire fleets. But the most impressive aspect of the human fleet was not the ships themselves, but the people who would crew them. While other species relied on artificial intelligence to control their vessels in combat, humans had discovered that their natural creativity and adaptability made them superior pilots and tacticians. Every crew member had trained for decades in hidden facilities scattered across the outer planets. The training programs had been more intense than anything in human military history. Pilots learned to fly in zero gravity, asteroid fields, and electromagnetic storms that would destroy most alien craft. Engineers studied technologies reverse-engineered from ancient ruins found deep in Earth. Oceans that predated any known civilization. Gunners practiced with weapons that could punch through the armor of Titan battleships. Like Paper Vice Admiral Lee pulled up personnel files showing the dedication of the human crews. Many had given up. Normal lives to prepare for this moment, spending years away from families and friends to master skills that might never be needed. Children had grown up in the secret training facilities, learning mathematics, physics, and military tactics alongside traditional subjects. The sacrifice had been enormous, but necessary. Admiral Park explained every human in the fleet understood that they were not just fighting for Earth, but for humanity right to exist as an independent species in the galaxy. The Titan Empire had a simple policy for dealing with species they considered inferior: complete conquest or total destruction. What made the human approach different from other species was their emphasis on teamwork and innovation rather than individual. Strength Titan warriors were powerful, but they fought as individuals following rigid battle plans that had worked for thousands of years. Human crews trained to work together, adapting to changing situations and creating new tactics in the middle of combat. The quantum communication network that connected all human ships allowed for coordination that no alien empire had ever achieved. Orders could be transmitted instantly across vast distances, and battle plans could be modified in real time. As conditions changed, this gave human forces flexibility that their enemies would find impossible to counter. Admiral Park looked at the countdown timer showing 18 hours until Empress Vela deadline. The time for hiding was almost over, and soon the galaxy would see what humanity had built in the darkness beyond their homeworld. Send the activation codes to all fleet commanders, she ordered. Operation Starfall begins in 12 hours, throughout the hidden shipyards and training facilities. Scattered across the outer solar system, millions of humans began final preparations for the greatest military operation in their species' history. Engineers performed last-minute checks on weapons systems that had been tested only in computer simulations. Pilots ran through flight patterns they had practiced thousands of times but never used in actual combat. The human fleet had been designed with one primary goal: to defeat an enemy that was larger, stronger, and more experienced, but less adaptable than themselves. Every system had backup plans, and every backup plan had alternatives. Human military doctrine emphasized that when facing superior numbers and technology, victory came from being unpredictable and innovative as the hours counted. Down toward the revelation of humanity, true strength. Admiral Park felt the weight of 8 billion lives resting on her decisions. The plan they had developed was brilliant, but it was also incredibly risky. If they failed, Earth would be destroyed, and humanity would cease to exist as a free species. But she also felt pride in what her species had accomplished in just 50 years. They had built a fleet capable of challenging the greatest empire in the galaxy. They had trained crews who could match any alien warriors, and they had done it all while appearing to be nothing more than primitive beings who posed no threat to anyone. The final message went out to all human facilities across the solar system and beyond. In 12 hours, the galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their weapons, but their ability to survive and thrive when everyone else believed they were finished. The Titan Empire was about to discover why underestimating humans was always a fatal mistake. Admiral Park smiled as she watched her fleet prepare for battle. The Empress had laughed at humanity and dismissed them as insects. Soon she would learn that even insects could bite back when threatened, and sometimes that bite could be deadly enough to bring down giants. In the vast emptiness of space far beyond any star system, where the cold reached temperatures that could freeze metal solid, the human fleet began to wake up like a sleeping dragon opening its eyes. Captain Minho Song stood on the bridge of the Supercarrier Soul Pride, watching as systems that had remained dormant for years came online with the soft hum of power flowing through quantum circuits. The bridge around him buzzed with activity as his crew of 5,000 moved with the practiced efficiency that came from decades of training. Navigation Officer Tae-Jin Yu called out readings from instruments that tracked gravitational fields and stellar positions, while Engineering Chief Haewon Park monitored the controlled black hole that powered their massive vessel. Captain, all primary systems are showing green lights, reported Tactical Officer Yoo-Jin Han, as her displays filled with weapon status indicators and defensive system readouts. The quantum drives are operating at full-capacity. Fighter squadrons are prepared for immediate launch, and our phase shift generators are ready for combat operations. Through the massive viewports that lined the bridge, Captain Song could see other supercarriers in the fleet beginning to glow with energy as they prepared for the journey to Titan space. The Eclipse-class vessels were engineering marvels that stretched 10 kilometers from bow to stern and carried enough firepower to level entire planets. Their hulls were built from materials that had been discovered in ancient alien ruins found deep beneath Earth oceans. The fleet had been stationed in the Void Sector for 15 years, a region of space so empty and lifeless that no alien civilization had ever bothered to explore it. Here in the darkness between galaxies, humanity had built shipyards, training facilities, and supply depots, all hidden behind gravitational cloaking devices that bent light and sensor waves around them. Commander Dong-Hyun Kim approached. Captain Song, with a tablet showing the complete battle plan that had been developed by Earth military strategists over several decades. Sir, our intelligence network has provided detailed maps of every Titan ship position across 12 star systems. They have divided their forces because they believe no single fleet could threaten their empire. The human intelligence network was perhaps their greatest secret weapon and certainly their most dangerous. For 50 years, human agents had infiltrated alien civilizations not as spies trying to steal military secrets, but as scientists, traders, diplomats, and researchers. The aliens saw humans as primitive and harmless, so they never suspected that the quiet human scholars in their universities were gathering information about weaknesses and tactical preferences. Dr. Soo-Jin Lee had spent 20 years living among the Titans, studying their military culture and learning how their command structure functioned. Her reports had revealed that Titan commanders relied heavily on intimidation and overwhelming force rather than tactical flexibility. They had conquered so many species through pure military might that they had never learned to adapt when facing unexpected challenges. The information gathering had been incredibly dangerous work, and many human agents had died maintaining their cover identities, but their sacrifice had provided Earth military planners with detailed knowledge of Titan ship designs, weapon capabilities, defensive systems, and, most importantly, the psychological profiles of their commanders. Captain Song activated the fleet-wide communication system, and his voice carried to over 6 million human crew members scattered across 12,000 ships. All vessels, this is Starfall Command. In 8 hours, we will begin our approach to Titan-controlled space and show the galaxy that humanity is not the weak species our enemies believe us to be. He paused and looked out at the stars that filled the viewports, knowing that somewhere among them, Earth waited for news of victory or defeat. Our ancestors faced impossible odds throughout human history, from ancient battles against overwhelming enemies to the colonization of hostile worlds to the development of technology that seemed impossible. They always found ways to survive and thrive. Today we carry that same spirit to the stars. We fight not just for our own survival, but for the right of all species to exist without fear of conquest or enslavement. The Titan Empire believes that strength comes from size and the ability to destroy enemies. We will show them that true strength comes from courage, innovation, and the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Throughout the fleet, human crews made final preparations for the most important battle in their species' history. Fighter pilots checked their craft one last time, running through startup sequences they had practiced thousands of times. Engineers monitored quantum reactors that powered weapons capable of tearing holes in space itself. Gunners calibrated targeting systems that could track enemy ships across entire star systems. The fighter squadrons were particularly impressive, with 50,000 small craft distributed. Among the supercarriers, each fighter was piloted by a human who had trained their entire adult life for this moment. The craft themselves were technological marvels, equipped with artificial intelligence systems that could predict enemy movements, and quantum communication links that allowed perfect coordination between pilots. Lieutenant Kyung-Soo Jong sat in the cockpit of his fighter running through pre-flight checks while thinking about his family back on Earth. His daughter had been born in one of the secret training facilities and had never seen the surface of their home world. She would grow up either in freedom or as a slave, depending on what happened in the next few days. The human approach to space combat was fundamentally different from anything the Titan Empire had encountered before. While alien species typically relied on massive ships firing at long range, humans had developed tactics based on speed maneuverability and close quarters. Fighting their fighters could operate independently or as coordinated swarms, adapting to battle conditions faster than enemy computers could track. Captain Song received updates from other fleet commanders as the awakening process continued throughout human space. Admiral In-Suk Cho reported from the destroyer group that all 3,000 vessels were ready for combat. Admiral Junho Yoon confirmed that the support fleet was prepared to maintain supply lines across multiple star systems. The quantum communication network that connected all human ships represented another technological breakthrough that gave them advantages no alien empire possessed. Orders could be transmitted instantly across any distance, allowing the entire fleet to coordinate as a single. Fighting force battle plans could be modified in real time, and individual ships could call for support from units light years away. As the final hour approached before their departure, Captain Song reflected on the magnitude of what humanity had accomplished. They had built a military force capable of challenging the greatest empire in known space, while appearing to be nothing more than a primitive species confined to a single world. The deception had required incredible discipline and sacrifice from millions of people over 5 decades. The bridge crew fell silent as the countdown reached its final minutes, and Captain Song felt the weight of history pressing down on him. The next few days would determine whether humanity joined the community of free species in the galaxy or disappeared forever as another conquered civilization at exactly 0 hour. The Soul Pride massive quantum drives engaged, and space around the supercarrier began to twist and fold. The other ships in the fleet activated their own faster-than-light systems, and 12,000 human vessels vanished from the void sector, leaving behind only empty space and the lingering energy signatures of their departure. They were heading toward a confrontation that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization and show every species in the universe that judging humanity by their appearance was always a dangerous mistake. The Titan Empire was about to learn that sometimes the smallest opponents carried the biggest surprises. Empress Vela stood in the command center of her flagship Titan Crusher, a vessel so massive it had its own artificial gravity generators and weather systems. The ship stretched 50 kilometers from end to end and carried a crew of 2 million beings from dozens of conquered species. Around her, the war room buzzed with activity as her admirals prepared to broadcast the final ultimatum to the pathetic humans. Admiral Kamra approached the Empress with sensor readings from the Sol system, his reptilian features showing the satisfaction that came from anticipating an easy victory. Your Majesty, our fleet of 3,000 vessels has completely surrounded the human homeworld. Their primitive defense satellites pose no threat to even our smallest ships. The countdown timer showed only 3 hours remaining until the human surrender deadline, and Empress Vela felt the familiar excitement that came before destroying another species. She had personally overseen the conquest of 47 worlds and the humans would be among the easiest victories in her long career. "Begin the final sensor sweep of human space," she commanded. "I want complete documentation of their pathetic fleet for our victory records. The destruction of Earth will serve as a warning to any other species that might consider resisting our empire." Admiral Comra activated the long-range scanning arrays that could detect and analyze every object larger than a shuttlecraft within several light years. The sensors had been designed to catalog enemy forces before battle and had never failed to provide accurate intelligence about opposing fleets. Instead of the expected readings showing 200 primitive human vessels, the displays began showing error messages and impossible energy signatures. "Empress, the sensors are detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the system," Admiral Comra reported with growing confusion. "Something is interfering with space itself in ways our computers cannot explain." Before Empress Vela could demand an explanation, the darkness between stars began to ripple and bend, like water disturbed by stones dropped from great heights. Space itself seemed to be twisting into new shapes, and from these distortions emerged objects that defied every law of physics the Titan Empire understood. The first human supercarrier materialized from what appeared to be empty space, its hull stretching across 10 kilometers of void and bristling with weapon systems that radiated energy signatures beyond anything in Titan databases. Then another ship appeared, and another, until the space around the Titan fleet began filling with vessels that should not have existed. Captain Wu Jin Nam stood on the bridge of the Supercarrier Incheon Thunder, watching as Titan ships throughout the system scrambled to respond to the sudden appearance of 12,000 human warships. The enemy vessels that had seemed so confident and threatening just moments before now appeared confused and disorganized as they tried to understand what was happening. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," he announced through the quantum communication network that connected every human vessel. "Execute Battle Plan Alpha and show them the price of threatening our world. Let them learn why underestimating humanity is always a fatal mistake." The human supercarriers opened their launch bays simultaneously, and 50,000 fighter craft poured into space like mechanical hornets, emerging from disturbed nests. Each small ship was piloted by a human who had trained their entire life for this moment and controlled by artificial intelligence systems that could react faster than biological reflexes. The fighters moved in patterns that seemed to dance around Titan weapon systems, their advanced maneuvering capabilities allowing them to dodge energy beams that could vaporize asteroids. The human pilots flew with an intuitive understanding of three-dimensional combat that their enemies had never encountered and could not predict. Empress Vela watched in horror as her massive fleet, which had conquered entire galactic sectors, found itself surrounded and outgunned by ships that her intelligence services had insisted did not exist. Her tactical computers could not even provide accurate counts of human vessels because they kept appearing and disappearing as their cloaking systems activated and deactivated in complex battle rhythms. "How is this possible?" she screamed at her advisors while grabbing Admiral Comra by his scaly throat. "Where did these ships come from?" Our spies reported that the humans had no significant military capabilities beyond their primitive orbital defenses, but her advisors had no answers. Because they had been completely deceived by humanity's greatest strategic weapon, the ability to appear weak and helpless while secretly preparing for war. The human intelligence network had fed carefully crafted misinformation to Titan agents for decades while their real military buildup remained hidden in the dark spaces beyond detection. The battle began in earnest as human weapons opened fire with energies that the Titan Empire had never seen before. Quantum cannons tore holes in space, itself, allowing projectiles to bypass enemy shields and strike hull plating directly. Gravity weapons twisted enemy ships into impossible shapes, while reality anchors prevented Titan vessels from escaping to faster-than-light speeds. Captain Ji Woo Park commanded a squadron of destroyers that attacked a Titan battleship the size of a small moon. Her vessels used phase shift technology to become temporarily invisible while repositioning for better attack angles. The enemy ship found itself unable to target weapons that appeared and disappeared without warning. The human attack patterns confused and terrified Titan commanders who had never faced an enemy that fought with such coordination and unpredictability. Their standard tactics of overwhelming firepower and intimidation proved useless against opponents who seemed to treat the massive Titan fleet like a training exercise. Lieutenant Commander Seo-jun Kim piloted his fighter through the chaos of battle, weaving between enemy capital ships, while his squadron disabled communication arrays and sensor systems. The Titan vessels were impressive in size, but their defenses had been designed to counter other large ships, not swarms of small, highly maneuverable craft. On the bridge of Titan Crusher, Empress Vela felt her confidence crumbling as reports poured in from throughout her fleet. Human ships were systematically dismantling her forces using tactics and technologies that her military scientists had declared impossible. The species she had dismissed as insects were fighting like they had been preparing for this exact battle for decades. Admiral Kamra struggled to coordinate defensive actions, but the quantum interference from human weapons was disrupting their command networks. Empress, our long-range communications are being jammed and several battleships have gone completely silent. We cannot determine the extent of our losses. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the Titan Command Center. The humans had not only built a fleet capable of challenging their empire, but had developed military technologies that were generations ahead of anything the Titans possessed. The primitive species that had begged for peaceful coexistence was systematically destroying the greatest war fleet in galactic history. A communication request appeared on the main display screen, and Empress Vela recognized Captain Kim, the human ambassador she had mocked in her throne room just days earlier. Appeared calm and composed despite the massive space battle raging around his ship, Empress Vela. He said with the same respectful tone he had used during their first meeting, "I believe you wanted to demonstrate why the Titan Empire rules the stars. Would you like to surrender now, or shall we continue this lesson in humility?" Behind him, she could see tactical displays showing human ships methodically destroying Titan vessels throughout multiple star systems. Her empire greatest fleet was being defeated by opponents she had considered beneath her notice. The laughter that had filled her throne room now seemed like the echo of a terrible mistake that would cost her everything. The space battle raged across 3 solar systems as human forces demonstrated tactical abilities that the Titan Empire had never encountered in thousands of years of conquest. Captain So-young Kim piloted her fighter through the mechanical chaos, weaving between enemy capital ships that fired desperately at targets they could barely track. Her squadron had been assigned to eliminate Titan communication networks, cutting the connections between scattered enemy forces. Dragon Squadron execute. Pattern 7, she commanded through her helmet communication system as her fighters approached a Titan battleship that stretched across 50 kilometers of space. The massive enemy vessel bristled with weapons designed to destroy other capital ships, but its defenses had never been tested against coordinated swarms of small, highly maneuverable craft. The human fighters moved with perfect synchronization, their attacks coordinated by quantum communication links that operated faster than light itself. Within minutes, the enormous Titan battleship found itself blind and deaf, its sensors destroyed by precisely targeted strikes, and its communication arrays reduced to glowing debris. On the supercarrier, Busan Rising Admiral Jae-sung Lim coordinated the overall battle strategy from a command center filled with holographic displays showing the positions of every human and enemy vessel across multiple star systems. The tactical situation was developing exactly as Earth military planners had predicted based on decades of studying Titan combat doctrine. The enemy relies on overwhelming firepower and intimidation tactics, Admiral Lim explained to his staff, while highlighting weak points in the Titan formation. They have conquered most species through superior numbers and raw destructive power, but they have never learned to adapt when facing opponents who refuse to be intimidated. His analysis was proven correct as Titan commanders struggled to respond to human battle tactics that changed faster than their decision-making processes could follow. The aliens had become accustomed to enemies who fought in predictable patterns using conventional strategies that could be countered with standard responses. All fleet commanders initiate Phase 2 operations. Admiral Lim ordered through the quantum network deploy quantum mines and activate reality anchors. Show them technologies they have never imagined. The human fleet began using weapons that existed at the very edge of theoretical physics, quantum mines that could occupy multiple locations simultaneously until they detected enemy ships, reality anchors that prevented faster-than-light travel in designated areas, energy cannons that drew power directly from parallel dimensions. Captain Min Seo-yoon commanded a destroyer group that had been tasked with capturing intact Titan vessels for intelligence purposes. Her ships used boarding pods filled with human marines who had trained for years in zero-gravity combat. The pods could phase through enemy hull armor and deliver soldiers directly into vital ship sections. The boarding actions revealed another advantage that humanity possessed over their enemies. While most alien species relied on environmental suits and artificial life support systems in hostile conditions, humans had evolved on a planet with extreme weather variations that made them naturally adaptable to different atmospheric conditions. Sergeant Tae-ho Jung led his Marine squad through the corridors of a captured Titan cruiser fighting enemy soldiers who had never encountered opponents trained in close quarters combat. The aliens were physically larger and stronger than humans, but they had been trained only for ship-to-ship warfare and were helpless against enemies who used the ship interior against them. Meanwhile, Empress Vela command ship shuddered under the impact of human weapons that somehow bypassed their defensive shields entirely. Her engineering staff reported that the enemy energy beams were striking hull plating through methods that their scientists could not understand or counter. The quantum tunneling effect allows our weapons to ignore conventional defenses, explained Chief Engineer Yeon-soo Choi to his confused staff. The humans have developed ways to make their projectiles exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously until they reach their targets. Dr. Hyojin Moon, the chief scientist aboard Titan Crusher, struggled to comprehend the technological capabilities that humanity had somehow developed in secret. These weapons should not be possible, according to everything we know about physics, she told the Empress. The humans appear to have mastered sciences that we have not even discovered. Battle continued for hours as human forces systematically disabled or captured enemy vessels throughout the Titan fleet. The aliens found themselves facing opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move and counter their strategies before they could be implemented. Lieutenant Sang-wook Lee piloted his fighter in close support of a boarding action, watching as human marines secured another enemy ship. The Titans had superior individual strength and advanced personal weapons, but they fought as individuals while humans coordinated their actions through constant communication and mutual support. The psychological impact of the battle was becoming as important as the physical destruction. Human forces were not just defeating the Titan Empire. They were demonstrating that everything the aliens believed about military superiority was wrong. Species throughout the galaxy had been told that resistance was futile because the Titans possessed overwhelming technological advantages. Admiral Lim received reports from across the battle zone showing that human casualties remained minimal while enemy losses continued to mount. The superior training and equipment that humanity had developed in secret was proving decisive against opponents who had relied on intimidation rather than actual combat effectiveness. Commander Yun Kyung Park coordinated fighter operations from the carrier Daegu Storm, directing squadrons that moved like schools of fish through the enemy formation. Each pilot had been trained to think independently while maintaining perfect coordination with their teammates. The result was a fighting force that could adapt to changing conditions faster than enemy computers could track. Empress Vela watched her tactical displays with growing despair as more red symbols appeared indicating destroyed or captured vessels. The fleet that had conquered 47 worlds was being systematically dismantled by enemies she had dismissed as primitive insects. Her admirals could provide no explanation for how the humans had achieved such technological superiority. Your Majesty, Admiral Kamra reported with barely controlled panic. We are receiving surrender requests from 17 battleship commanders and our communications. With the outer system forces have been completely cut. The humans appear to have isolated our fleet into separate groups that cannot support each other. The Empress realized that her empire's greatest military force was not just being defeated, but was facing complete annihilation at the hands of opponents who had spent decades preparing for this exact confrontation. The species she had laughed at possessed military capabilities that exceeded anything in Titan databases. Captain Kim transmission. Request appeared on her screen again, and this time, Empress Vela felt fear instead of amusement when she looked at the human ambassador. The calm expression on his face suggested that this battle was proceeding exactly as humanity had planned. 3 days after the first human supercarrier had materialized from empty space, Empress Vela found herself aboard the vessel Soul Pride, no longer as the ruler of a galactic empire, but as a prisoner whose future would be decided by the species she had mocked. The human fleet had not only defeated her forces completely, but had captured most Titan ships intact using boarding techniques that disabled crews without destroying valuable technology. Admiral Park sat across from the former Empress, in a simple conference room that stood in stark contrast to the Crystal Palace, where Vela had once held court. The walls were plain metal, and the furniture was basic but functional. The only decoration was a holographic display showing peaceful images of Earth with its blue oceans and green continents between them. Lay a document that would reshape galactic civilization. But the terms were unlike any treaty the Titan Empire had ever seen. Humanity was not demanding tribute or territory, or the enslavement of conquered populations. Instead, they proposed something that challenged every assumption about how victorious species should behave. We propose the establishment of the Galactic Cooperation Council. Admiral Park explained while gesturing toward the treaty document, a democratic organization where all species, regardless of their military strength or technological advancement, have equal representation and equal voice in determining their own futures. Empress Vela struggled to understand the concept that humanity was presenting to her. The idea that a victorious military force would choose cooperation over conquest contradicted everything she had learned about power and survival during her centuries of ruling the Titan Empire. You defeated our fleet completely, she said while studying Admiral Park face for signs of deception or hidden motives. Your weapons destroyed our most advanced ships, and your boarding parties captured vessels that no enemy had ever taken. You could demand anything from us. Rule our territories, enslave our populations. Why would you choose to offer partnership instead of demanding submission? Captain Kim, who had been released from Titan custody during the battle, answered her question with words that revealed the fundamental difference between human and Titan thinking. Because we learned something important from studying your empire history. Empress conquest creates rebellion, domination, breeds resentment and fear, generates hatred that lasts for generations. He activated a holographic display that showed the internal structure of the Titan Empire with its millions of enslaved species and countless rebellions that had been suppressed through military force. Your empire controls territory through violence, but it has never achieved true peace. The species you conquered still dream of freedom and work secretly to undermine your authority. The lesson that humanity had learned from their study of galactic history was that empires built on conquest eventually collapsed under the weight of their own oppression. The Titan Empire might control thousands of worlds, but it spent enormous resources maintaining that control against populations that would rebel the moment they saw an opportunity. We do not want to rule the galaxy. Admiral Park continued. We want to explore it alongside others who share our curiosity about the universe and our respect for the diversity of life that evolution has created. Every species brings unique perspectives and capabilities that can benefit everyone when shared freely. The revolutionary concept that humans were proposing challenged the basic assumptions that had governed galactic politics for millions of years. Instead of the traditional cycle of conquest and rebellion, they offered a system where different species could maintain their independence while working together on projects that would benefit everyone, Dr. Yoonji Moon, Humanity Chief Xenobiologist, addressed. The growing assembly of species representatives who had arrived to negotiate their own independence from the Titan Empire. They had monitored the battle through long-range sensors and had seen something unprecedented, a military force that fought for liberation rather than conquest. We have discovered that the galaxy contains incredible diversity of life forms and ways of thinking. Dr. Moon explained while displaying images of thousands of different species. Each civilization has developed unique solutions to problems that others struggle with. When we work together, we can accomplish things that would be impossible for any single species. The practical benefits of cooperation became clear as human scientists shared technologies they had developed, while Titan researchers provided knowledge about stellar engineering and other advanced sciences. Species that had been enemies for centuries began discussing joint research projects and trade agreements 6 months after the battle that had ended the Titan Empire. The first meeting of the Galactic Cooperation Council convened on a space station that had been built through the combined efforts of dozens of species. The structure itself represented the new philosophy, with each section designed according to different architectural styles and environmental requirements. Empress Vela, now holding the elected position of Titan representative, watched as species that had been bitter enemies worked side by side on projects ranging from medical research to stellar cartography. The irony was not lost on her that the beings she had dismissed as insects had accomplished something her mighty empire never could. The council chambers buzzed with activity as representatives debated proposals for joint exploration missions to unknown galaxies, shared research into technologies that could extend the lifespan of dying stars, and educational exchanges that would allow young beings from different species to learn about other ways of life. Captain Song, now serving as Humanity military advisor to the Council, coordinated the transformation of warships into exploration vessels. The Supercarriers that had once cast shadows across battlefields now served as mobile research stations, carrying mixed crews of scientists from multiple species to study phenomena that no single civilization could have investigated alone. The quantum communication network that had given human forces their tactical advantage in battle now connected peaceful research stations across the galaxy, allowing instant collaboration between scientists who were light years apart. The same technology that had defeated the Titan Empire was being used to share knowledge and discoveries in the station educational centers. Human children played alongside young Titans and dozens of other species, learning languages and customs that their parents had never imagined. The next generation would grow up thinking of the galaxy as their shared home rather than a collection of territories to be conquered. Admiral Park reflected on the transformation that had taken place as she watched the daily activities of beings who had once been mortal enemies. The humans had won their war not through superior firepower alone, but through their vision of what galactic civilization could become when built on cooperation rather than conquest. The most remarkable aspect of the new order was how quickly former enemies had adapted to working together. Once species were freed from the fear of conquest, they discovered that they had more in common than they had differences. All sapient beings shared curiosity about the universe, desires to improve their lives, and dreams of better futures for their children, as she stood in the observation deck, looking out at stars that now represented opportunities for exploration rather than territories to conquer. Admiral Park realized that humanity's greatest victory had not been defeating the Titan Empire. The real triumph was proving that the galaxy could be united through respect and mutual benefit, rather than fear and domination. The supercarriers that had once seemed like harbingers of destruction now carried explorers and scientists toward unknown regions of space where new discoveries waited to be shared with the entire galactic community. The shadows that had consumed the stars during battle had given way to the light of cooperation and hope for the future.